Hello, everybody. Mark Isley here with Dr. Avivi, and this is Master This, where we do this show every Friday where we have you master an organizational development or a self development task. Our job as psychiatrists, or not psychiatrists, psychologists, is to help you to become the best person possible, both at work, at home, in your family, and in your own life. So today we're going to talk about procrastination. Adi, you want to send
Yep.
us in?
So what we're going to do today is we're going to teach you two techniques that would help you move from procrastination to productivity. We're going to look at how to use those natural tendency to actually procrastinate and divert attention from your task or your goal to move you back toward those goals. We're going to teach you two more techniques next week. This is a big topic. So today we're going to focus on two things: using expectations and beliefs to promote productivity and move away from procrastination, and engineering deadlines. I'm going to start by talking about expectancy and belief as kind of posts that would help you move forward. So what we're talking about when we talk about expectations and beliefs, it's a little bit like, if you didn't see our last video, I recommend that you watch it, because we talked about beliefs that will take you away from actually engaging in behaviors that move you toward your goal. You might have beliefs and ideas that will take you away from that. So in order to really come up with an expectation that motivates you further to engage in your goal, the expectation has to be realistic and time limited and measurable. What do I expect that I can do, rather than looking at the big and overwhelming task that's in front of me? What can I do right now that will produce an outcome that I can enjoy, that I can be proud of, and will give me some satisfaction? That isn't that easy when typically what we think about is a big, overwhelming goal. So what we want to do is move away from a goal that is defined in our mind as something negative, kind of what do I want to avoid, and change into a goal that is, what do I want to approach? What do I want to achieve? And what can I approach and achieve in the time and energy that I have right now at my disposal? The reason is that recent research with our brain is that our right side of the brain is kind of avoid oriented and the left side is approach oriented. And our left brain is also connected to feelings of joy, satisfaction, happiness, and calmness. So when we think through approach, we are also going to invite a lot of joy and satisfaction from what we do, rather than operate under what we're anxious about and we want to avoid. For example, I want to avoid feeling embarrassed in the team meeting, so I should do my reading, is an avoid task. An approach task is, I want to read 5 pages in the next half an hour. The latter task that I have defined to myself is something that I expect to be able to do, and I believe will give me gratification and some joy. It is very different than, oh my God, what am I going to do? There is this big presentation that I need to give. You can ask yourself, do I define my goals in an avoid or an approach language? Do I say to myself, I want to avoid eating junk food? Or do I say to myself, I would like to eat 3 square meals of healthy food that makes me feel good in the next week? When we define our goals in a positive, toward achievement kind of language, we recruit ourselves. We move away from the procrastination into, how do I want to be productive in this moment? So the expectancy and belief is, what can I truly expect myself to do right now? What is possible for me to do right now? What do I believe is within the scope of my capacity right now, when I know how much time and how much energy I have in this very moment? So I want to challenge people to really ask themselves, what can I do about this big task that I might have that is really doable for me? And imagine to yourself the satisfaction and the sense of achievement that you will have once you completed that task. knowing that it's one step closer to the bigger goal that you might be working toward at this moment in time. So we want to be able to attain something, and for that sense of attainment to be immediate. We are motivated to get immediate satisfaction. So we want to make that sense of attainment, of me being masterful and successful, to be really close as possible, creating an idea in our head of the steps that we can take to get to this attainable, fulfilling, smaller goal. And that goes straight into what you're going to present on, Mark. So I'm going to hand it to you, and maybe you can think of what our viewers could do with this information.
Yeah, well, as you were talking, there's a metaphor that I use a lot with my clients, which is the idea of what fuel source are you running on? And the examples that I use is like you can run on kerosene or you can run on renewable energy. And both will get the car where it needs to go. But if you're running on kerosene, which in this case is those avoidant behaviors, is that fear-based model, is working with procrastination, working with anxiety, running on this fear of getting in trouble or fear of, messing it up, it'll get you there, but it causes so much pollution and it overall degrades the engine, which leads you straight into burnout. If you're running on renewable energy, like the things you're talking about, Adi, of I want to do this, I'm going to be empowered, I want to eat healthy, I want to get my work done, I want to read, I want to move towards this idealized version of myself, I want to be a better parent, I want to be a better worker, I want to be a better professional, I want to be a better cook for, goodness sakes. These types of things, it's a positive move. It's essentially, you're moving towards the carrot instead of avoiding the stick. And it creates a renewable sense of energy that can overall make people feel more empowered, make them just feel healthier, more confident, and essentially get used to winning. There's something in the mind that once we start winning, we start liking to win. And we can win more, win more, win more, win more. And building these little wins every day is amazing for self-esteem and amazing for feeling confident and powerful in your life. So I'd love to, take a break here and listen to the audience comment or, share this. I would like to know, how have you experienced the carrot and stick dynamic? Are there times when you really beat yourself up or you really just use fear and stress to get there? And what about times when you're moving towards something? And we want to hear examples. If you share an example in the comments, it might be really common to someone else. So you might not just be speaking for yourself, you might be speaking for a whole group of people, which is really cool. So as we're building this community, we want to see where people are at.
I also want to ask people if you're willing to write in the comments, if you have a big goal that's kind of like unattainable right now, what small goal do you think you can attain in the next, half a day, half an hour, 5 minutes? Kind of like, how can you use this information to create an expectancy of success for yourself today with something that you're looking to achieve in the near future for yourself? So can you think of something that you can attain in the next half an hour after you're done with our little video of Master This?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it does dovetail really nicely into the next topic, which is the idea of engineering deadlines. So a lot of the stuff I'm about to talk about comes from two books. One is Getting Things Done by David Allen, and the other one is called The Four Disciplines of Execution. So I'm going to share a little bit from those and how deadlines help to work to motivate us. So first, a little bit of history, right? Whether we like it or not, if we went to public school, particularly in a Western country, we learned about deadlines, right? We learned about homework, we learned about tests, we learned about projects, we learned about exams. We were taught to work with deadlines. Sucks, actually, right? Because it's kind of what it is saying, right? Like we're taught to work with don't get in trouble. You got to get your grade up. You don't want to get it expelled. You don't want to fail out of school. It's all this negative external, which is actually the problem. Negative reinforcement is not always bad, but external reinforcement that's when it gets really tricky. That model then continues into the workplace where managers act very much the same way, right? With project deadlines and things like that. So for most of us, for most of our viewers at least, I'm not sure how it works in other countries, but for most of our viewers, we're hardwired to work with deadlines. That's how we were conditioned growing up. A lot of this internal stuff we really weren't taught, typically. So hopefully you can grow that down the line, and we'll talk, I'm sure, in future videos how to grow that. But working with deadlines, here's a way to do it. And it reminds me I encountered this issue when I was first starting my own business, was I didn't have any deadlines because I was my own boss. So all of a sudden, all that external thing went away. And I think people might be experiencing that if they're entrepreneurs. They might be experiencing if they're working from home, where you're both the technician, the person doing the work, and you're the manager, which is the person trying to get you to do the work. And if you don't have managerial training, it really gets bungled up because the only person holding deadlines over yourself is you. So I found a couple things that are helpful for setting deadlines and engineering deadlines. The first and foremost is bringing someone else in. The typical kind of buzzword is accountability buddy. Having someone that is going to be checking your work, that is going to be a stream of accountability. In the book 4DX, 4 Disciplines of Execution, they talk about having regular cadence of meetings. In fact, Dee and I have regular meetings as a way to kind of implement this, where we're going to sit and we're going to talk, even if there's nothing to talk about. We're going to have that regular cadence that creates a deadline for us to get some of the work done that we're working behind the scenes on some of our other projects. Because there's just something regular on the calendar that has this, metronomic kind of thing. Another one that's really popular is having a public scoreboard. So this comes from, I think Jerry Seinfeld did this actually, where they asked, what's the secret to being funny? And he said, tell a good joke every day. And he literally had this calendar with X's, and it was like, told a good joke, told a good joke, told a good joke. And it creates this chain. You can see actually, so my mind works, companies use this. The most common popular company using this now is Snapchat, where they actually create these chains that create engagement, where you want to keep Snapchatting people, you want to keep sending them snaps in order to keep your chain going. You can harness this by creating a deadline for yourself where you are publicly tracking I wish I could move this camera, but I have a giant whiteboard actually over here, and spreadsheets on my computer where you can just track behavior. So it could be something like, read part of a book, or, reach out to 5 leads, or do a coding tutorial. And it's a little thing every week that you're creating this chain of wins that are ongoing. So when you look at it, you're like, oh, I've been doing this for 25 days. Like, I don't want to mess it up now. It can create this kind of deadline where you're constantly getting used to winning and you're constantly achieving. Having that public also brings in the sense of friendly competition. So if you're working on a team, actually having those things public on a shared drive or on a shared program, you can actually look at each other's chains, and as long as it's friendly competition, it can really help to have accountability across the whole organization. And the idea is to focus on exactly what Adi's saying, things that are called lead measures rather than lag measures. So a lead measure is something that you can do every day to move towards your goal. So for instance, call 5 people every day. Whereas a lag measure is something that you measure after the fact, like increase customer satisfaction by 15%. It's hard to know what that is or how you get there. But if you're following those little steps, those little lead measures, then at some point your customer satisfaction will go up. So Adi.
I love what you're saying, and I'm like, I want to make it very clear that the way to do it is to engineer a deadline for something really concrete, really clear, really measurable. And that's what you're talking about with the boards and sharing it with other people. What you want to put on your board and share with other people is something that is super clear and has a clear deadline. Because if you say to yourself, for example, when we think of the approach versus avoid goals, if you want to approach a particular end result, you need to know what it is. So like you said, I want to call 5 customers. When? By when? If I need to call 5 customers, do I want to do it by hump day, by Wednesday at noon? When will I call them? When will be the times of the day on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday by noon? What hour of the day? Who will I call? Where are their phone numbers? It's really helpful to make a plan that will help you, like Mark said, win each one of them. So that when you come to the deadline, it's not this arbitrary thing that you're like, okay, I'm gonna have a spurt of energy Wednesday morning because my deadline is at 12 p.m. We want to have very clear plan of when and how we're going to take action. And that will increase your productivity, move you away from procrastination, because you know what's expected of you at each given point of time until the deadline. So for example, if what you want to do is the approach of, I want to eat more healthy meals. I want to cook 3 meals this week. What days of the week? Which meal? Lunch or dinner? If you want to start cooking by 6 p.m. on Tuesday and on Thursday, where are you going to get the groceries? which supermarket or farmer's market, wherever it is you go. What time do you need to leave the house to get the groceries, to be back at home at 6 to start it? Give yourself deadlines that are very, very concrete. It will increase that spurt of energy toward completing the deadline that comes naturally when deadlines come. Those deadlines that Mark talked about that we get in school and in our work from external forces.
Yeah, and what it does, like to add to that, this comes from getting things done, is this idea that what's actually hard about life is being tactical. Executing is not that hard, but making all those little decisions like you're talking about, Adi, like where do I go, what do I buy, what time do I start, all of that really drains the brain of glycogen, right? It really actually helps us burn out if we have to make all these decisions. So if you can remove as many decisions as possible when you get to the actual moment, then you just execute on the program, right? You just move through your thing. What the recommendation is, what David Allen recommends, and what I personally do, is actually having a time every week called a weekly review where you do the tactical thinking and you do just that. And that little hack is so powerful. To actually have, I do 2 hours on Sunday to sit down and plan your week to the kind of detail that Adi's actually talking about. You know, where you're taking a step back. You don't have to act, right? You're just being a strategy, right? You're just doing strategy. And separating out the strategy from the action makes the action way, way, way easier and doesn't have you kind of jumping back and forth between those two modes. So as we're wrapping up here, I want to hear from...
I just want to mention one thing, that a lot of what I'm talking about, I read in Pierce Steele's book on procrastination. And so just giving credit when credit is due. And I want to add a question to the audience again and just ask that again, in the comments, if you can share what is a deadline that you are planning to engineer with this information. And if you're playful and willing, be super concrete. Tell us exactly how you're going to implement each deadline. What is the exact goal that you have in mind and how you're going to go about it. Giving lots of details to yourself and to us. It's kind of a playful thing that I'll be excited to see in our comments.
Yeah, it's cool to see that our thing has impact, you know, and if you post, we'll actually shout you out on the next episode and check in and see how you're doing with your deadline. So
let's wrap up and just remind everybody that we are doing a little mini series on procrastination. Last week, or rather 2 weeks ago, we talked about the beliefs that will increase procrastination. I recommend that you watch it. And today we started with 2 techniques using expectancy and beliefs as well as engineering deadlines to avoid procrastination and increase productivity. And next week, we're going to talk about 2 more techniques that would help you battle that tendency to procrastinate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so please like both our Facebook pages, subscribe to our YouTube channels. We'll put all the links to that, to the books that we referenced, all that in the description of this video. Check us out, watch our other videos, give us feedback. This is a fun new project that we're developing, and we want to hear from the people that are watching to see if it's helpful and how we can make it deliver more value. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next Friday. Bye.